What if gravity disappeared right now? Not forever. Just for 10 seconds. Would you float into the sky? Would buildings collapse? Would the oceans spill into space? 10 seconds doesn't sound like much, but 10 seconds without gravity would be enough to change everything you know about the world you live in. Let's find out exactly what would happen, step by step. The moment gravity switches off, everything not bolted or nailed to the ground lifts. You, your chair, your coffee cup, your pet sleeping on the couch, all of it. Rising slowly at first, like something out of a dream. Then faster still. Outside, cars drift silently off roads. Buses float above streets. Bicycles spin slowly upward. Loose gravel and dirt rise in clouds from every surface. Trees with shallow roots begin to pull free from the ground, floating upward with their roots dangling beneath them like strange floating jellyfish. Planes already in the air suddenly have nothing pulling them down. Their engines are still running, still pushing them forward. But without gravity to give them direction, pilots lose all sense of up and down. Instruments go haywire. Everything that wasn't strapped down inside the cabin is now floating luggage. Drinks, passengers who weren't wearing seatbelts. People walking outside stumble as their feet leave the ground. No warning. No rumble. No alarm. Just suddenly weightless and rising, with nothing to grab onto and no way to stop. And the terrifying part. Most people wouldn't even understand what was happening. They'd just be floating. Looking around at their neighbors also floating. At their cars drifting past them. At the ground getting further away beneath their feet. Completely confused. Completely helpless. And getting higher every second. Now think about water. Water is heavy, really heavy. A single gallon weighs over 8 pounds, and gravity is the only thing keeping all of it exactly where it belongs. Rivers in their banks, lakes in their basins, and oceans trillions upon trillions of gallons of salt water sitting exactly where they're supposed to sit. The moment gravity disappears, water doesn't stay put. Ocean surfaces begin to tremble first. Then they lift. Massive trembling walls of water rising slowly into the lower atmosphere. Billions of gallons of seawater floating upward in enormous irregular spheres, catching the sunlight as they rise. Fish and whales and entire coral reefs suspended inside these floating masses of water, drifting slowly skyward. Think about how strange that image is. Standing on a coastline and watching the ocean just ... rise. Not a wave, not a storm surge. The entire surface of the sea, lifting away from the seabed and floating upward like the world's largest balloon. Rivers spill out of their banks and rise in long twisting ribbons into the sky. The Mississippi, the Amazon, the Nile, all of them unraveling from their courses and floating upward in slow, spiraling columns of water. Lakes become enormous floating bubbles. The Great Lakes alone contain enough water to cover the entire continental United States under about 9 feet of water. All of that just hanging in the air above the Midwest. It would look almost beautiful from a distance. Like the Earth was decorating itself with enormous water sculptures, till gravity comes back. Now think about the ground itself. Most people don't realize that the Earth's crust is held together partly by gravity. Every rock, every mountain, every layer of soil is pressing down on the layer beneath it with enormous weight. That constant downward pressure is part of what keeps the ground stable and intact. Without gravity, even for just a few seconds, that pressure releases all at once. Cracks form along fault lines that were already under stress. Not full earthquakes immediately, but the kind of micro-shifts that weaken foundations and change the stress distribution in the rock. Underground caverns that were stable suddenly lose the pressure holding their ceilings in place. Some collapse, others crack open. On the surface, buildings don't fall immediately, but their foundations shift. Even a millimeter of movement in a foundation can crack walls, buckle floors, and compromise the structural integrity of the entire building. Bridges flex in ways their engineers never designed for. Underground subway tunnels experience pressure changes that crack their concrete linings. Dams shift slightly on their foundations, and a shifted dam is a compromised dam. 10 seconds is short. But the damage to the ground beneath everything we've built starts the moment gravity switches off. And some of that damage will not be visible until much later. Now here comes the moment everyone is dreading. Gravity comes back. And everything that went up has to come down. All at once. Every car that floated 30 feet off the ground. Every person that drifted upward. Every tree that pulled free from the soil. Every wall of ocean water that rose into the atmosphere. Every floating river, every lake bubble. Every loose rock and piece of gravel and chunk of debris from every cracked building and buckled road. All of it falling back to Earth simultaneously. The impact would be unlike anything in recorded human history. People who floated even just 10 or 20 feet in the air would hit the ground at speeds no human body can absorb without serious injury. Most would not survive. People who were outside with nothing above them and drifted upward for the full 10 seconds could be anywhere, from 50 to 150 feet in the air when gravity returns. That fall is unsurvivable without some form of cushioning beneath them. Cars and buses and trucks slam back onto roads and into buildings. The structural damage from their impact compounds the damage already done to foundations during the weightless period. Buildings that were already weakened begin to collapse under the combined stress, and then the water comes back. The ocean water that rose into the atmosphere crashes back down onto coastlines with a force that makes the 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami look small by comparison. There is no warning system for this. There is no evacuation possible. Coastal cities and most of the world's major cities are coastal, are hit by walls of returning seawater moving at enormous speed. The noise of everything hitting the ground simultaneously would be the loudest sound in human history. Every object on Earth returning to the surface at the same moment. A single thunderclap so large it would circle the entire planet multiple times. People hundreds of miles from any impact zone would be deafened by it. But here's the part that most people don't think about. Gravity isn't just a local force that keeps your feet on the ground. 'Tis a force that operates across the entire solar system, constantly, in every direction. Earth's gravity holds the moon in its orbit. The sun's gravity holds Earth in its orbit. Everything is connected through gravity in a precise and delicate balance that has been stable for billions of years. If Earth's gravity switched off for even 10 seconds, the moon would drift slightly off its orbital path. Just slightly. A few meters. Maybe a few hundred meters, depending on exactly when in the moon's orbit the event occurred. That doesn't sound like much, but orbital mechanics are extraordinarily precise. Even a tiny deviation in trajectory compounds over time. Each orbit the moon completes after the event would be slightly different from the one before. The deviation would grow slowly, but consistently. Scientists who have modeled this scenario estimate that a 10-second gravity outage could alter the moon's orbit enough to measurably change tidal patterns on Earth within decades. And over thousands of years, the cumulative effect on the moon's orbit could be significant. Enough to affect everything from ocean tides to the stability of Earth's axial tilt. 10 seconds without gravity. Thousands of years of consequences rippling outward from that single moment. So who survives? The answer is some people. But survival depends almost entirely on where you are and what you are doing at the exact moment it happens. If you are indoors, on the ground floor, in a structurally solid building, you have a reasonable chance. You float toward the ceiling, maybe 8 to 10 feet. You bump it. You hang there for a few seconds. And when gravity returns, you fall back down. Painful, possibly a broken bone or two. But alive. If you are in a car on a highway, you are in serious danger. The car lifts, you have no control. And when gravity returns, the car falls back onto the road or onto other cars or into barriers. The crash would be severe. If you are outside in an open area with nothing above you, the outcome depends on how fast you are rising. 10 seconds of weightlessness means you could be anywhere from 30 to over 100 feet in the air when gravity snaps back. Most people in this situation would not survive the fall. If you are near any coastline anywhere in the world, the returning ocean water is your biggest threat. It would arrive fast, with no warning and with a force that nothing on a coastline could withstand. The survivors would be the ones who happened to be in the right place at the exact wrong moment. Underground, in the center of a continent, away from water. In a low-ceilinged room with soft flooring beneath them. Luck. That is what survival would come down to. Here is your final thought. Gravity is invisible. You have never seen it. You have never touched it. You have spent your entire life completely unaware of it, doing its job every single second of every single day. It keeps the air in the atmosphere so you can breathe. It keeps the water in the oceans so the planet stays alive. It keeps the moon in its orbit so the tides stay stable. It keeps Earth at exactly the right distance from the sun so the temperature stays in the range that allows life to exist. We never think about it because it has never once failed us. Not for a single second in the entire history of life on this planet. But if it did, even for just 10 seconds, the world as we know it would never fully recover. Not in our lifetime. Not in our children's lifetime. Maybe not for thousands of years. And that is what would happen if gravity disappeared for just 10 seconds. Next time we ask, what would happen if the moon came crashing toward Earth? Trust me, you don't want to miss that one. Subscribe so you don't. And we'll see you in the next one.